Welcome back here to Mighty Mac on YouTube. The first day of the Indy 500 Open Test has taken place. The weather was nice enough to hold on long enough for us to see some quick speeds be dropped out there. Some surprises up at the top half, as well as Kyle Larson's first day with full traffic out on the racetracks. And this is October rookie test. We have some interviews to go over. We have the top 10 to go over. And of course, we get to look forward to the 108th running of the Indianapolis 500. Before we get into the video, however, I do want to say, if you like what we're doing, if you like what we're being able to give you guys here, not only at the Indianapolis 500 or the Indianapolis Speedway, but as well as the NHRA Mission Foods Drag Racing Series. We're going to give you guys as much content as we can with the month of May coming up. Hopefully, we get our media passes for that event. But if you do like what you're seeing with us doing here, not only at IMS, but at the various drag shows across the country, then be sure to subscribe to the channel, be sure to like, be sure to comment on the videos, and be sure to share it. But most of all, of course, subscribe to the channel so that way you cannot miss a single video as we ramp up for the month of May, because we're going to have a lot of coverage planned, and we want to make sure that you guys are in the know. So without further ado, let's get into the video. So day one of the Indianapolis 500 Open Test is wrapped up here. Sadly, not the way anybody wanted to, but honestly, it's more than anybody expected that we were going to get. The radar going into this week in general, just screamed rain. It was going to rain the entire time. Monday for the eclipse, the Speedway had an event for that. They had a bit of a demo laps, if you want to call it that, where Renus VK and Ed Carpenter went out and pulled laps. So probably they have more laps on this track than anybody right now because of that. It was supposed to rain from the start of the day, like at 9 a.m. before that. It held off for most of the day. They got the track dried, and then they started running up until about a couple hours ago. Right now it is about 5:16. They stopped running at about 2:30 to 3, and then they called it off about an hour ago. So not the way anybody wanted to go, because sadly tomorrow it's going to be raining like from the start, from the get-go. It's going to be raining the entire day from like 3 in the morning. It's not going to stop. In fact, it's going to get worse. They're calling for thunderstorms. There's already warnings being sent out about it. It is going to be ugly. And apparently a lot of the teams are, like drivers have been hinting that IndyCar is apparently in talks that possibly the test can be pushed back to Friday. Graham Rahal said, which you'll see the video in a bit, that he really hopes it doesn't, because a lot of these teams did not bring their oval cars because of the fact they don't want to risk having these cars out here with their oval cars for the 500 and then wrecking them in testing and then having a car that's absolutely worthless and then have to go scramble to put something together within a month. So a lot of teams brought out their Laguna Seca cars. So that's what their Long Beach cars, that's what they brought. A lot of them brought their Long Beach cars out. And sadly, a lot of them are in their oval configs right now. So if they have to run it on Friday, that takes a lot of time out, because the teams have to drive all the way out to Long Beach next week for that race. So it gives them a very short turnaround time to get those cars back. So they need that Friday to get it done. And apparently there's talks that if the rain consists the way it is, that they might push it back to Friday. There's also been talks that they might move it back to May, and then we'll actually have a full month of May. How about that? So hopefully we can see that. I'd rather have an extra day of practice in May than having it on Friday, because I'm not going to be here on Friday. So not the way anybody wanted to go. A lot of drivers also talked about the fact that there wasn't much that they could take from today because of the fact that it's about 20 to 30 degrees cooler than it usually is in May. Usually in May you're talking about high 70s, low 80s, sometimes in the extreme upwards of the 90s is more the case towards the end of the month, towards June and race day. So a lot of teams weren't really able to use much. It was more so dusting the cobwebs off, seeing where everybody's at, getting used to running these high-speed ovals again, because of the fact that this is the only one that we have right now besides Nashville, but that's a temporary circuit right now. So this is really the only time that these guys get used to this before the Indianapolis 500. And for guys like Kyle Larson, for guys like Takuma Sato, who don't do this every often, this is a big weekend for them to try and get these cars set for the month of May. So this is a huge weekend for them. Not so much for trying to get the car set up correctly, because it's not going to be anywhere near this unless we have a 1992 weather or the 2013 weather, which I would love this kind of weather, because it gives you much better racing, higher downforce, higher grip, higher speeds. It's everything I love. It's why I love the 2013 race, so hopefully that's the case. We're going to look to the top 10 results for this race, or today's test sessions, all the combined, because they had the morning warm-up session, which is about 3 hours. Then they had the rookie orientation, the veteran refresher, all that stuff. And then we had about 20 minutes of the full session with everybody out there before the rain hit. So this is a combined of everybody there. We're only going to do the top 10, because if the rain persists the way it does tomorrow, I'll go over the full 35 or 34. So that way we have something to talk about tomorrow along with some interviews. So looking, number one I'm about to say number one qualifier. I'm so used to the NHRA. Top speed of the day. Joseph Newgarden, reigning Indianapolis 500 champion, 228.811. No, we did not see a 230. That has yet to be achieved. It looked like you might have gotten it towards the end of the day. Kyle Larson, P2 with a 226.384. You're going to hear about that a lot now because of that. Oh, Kyle Larson in his first ever day of full-on track action running second. Even he says that's not a very representative lap for what they have, because again, this is not going to be anywhere close to the weather they're going to have come May, so this isn't really representative. Also, because if you watched my interview from the bullpen session earlier today, Pato O'Ward, when asked about that lap, said, hey, nice toe lap, because again, not a representative time. That is not the true speed that car can run on its own. That's the speed that car can run when you have a huge vacuum of air pulling that car behind like a rope. Third, Scott Dixon. Fourth, Alex Palou. Cole Herta in fifth, a rebound for Andretti as they try to fix up their oval setup, because right now they've always had a fast race package but not a fast single car run for qualifying, so they've been trying to more focus on getting a better overall car rather than just a race day setup. So good result for them in fifth. Scott McLaughlin sixth, Ed Carpenter, the hometown hero and the oval only driver, in seventh, Kyle Kirkwood eighth, Christian Rasmussen in ninth, and then Felix Rosenquist in 10th, which is a big one for him. Felix was really strong last year at Arrow McLaren. It was a big disappointment to see that he got dropped from that team in favor of, obviously, David Malukas, which obviously we all love David Malukas. Everybody loves Spud Boy. He's a fan favorite. But Felix Rosenquist was so good in this race last year. He was so strong throughout the rest of the season that it was really sad to see him go. He found a new spot at Meyer Shank, and that team is looking very strong. They kind of laid in the bushes for a while. They weren't really going out there trying to set big fast laps, so they're kind of pulling that whole sneaky Shank thing that they did back in 21. So expect them to possibly be one of the front runners, especially with a guy like Felix Rosenquist and Elio Castroneves. That's going to possibly be a power team coming into the season, because of the fact that they don't have the Acura LMDH car anymore. They just get to focus on this, so they're going to have full bore attention on trying to win this Indianapolis 500, get Elio's fifth, or get Felix's first, or possibly even Tom Blomqvist. So big shout out to them for the results that they had. I'm going to spotlight some of the guys, obviously past winners. Let's look through here. Marcus Ericsson, 14th with 223.5. 2018 winner Will Power back with a 222.9. Graham Rahal, you're going to hear from him in a bit about his qualifying speed. They did a huge revamp to try and get that car better for these oval races. Right now, currently sitting 19th with 222. Looking further down the order, Takuma Sato with Ray Hall, Lernerman Lanigan again, and down in 23rd with a 221. Alexander Rossi, the second slowest of the past winners at a 220, but obviously they were more so waiting to possibly go later in the day, more than likely, get the setup right for the later in the day runs, but sadly the rain held off on that, and then Ryan Hunter-Reay with a 206. So again, not very representative speeds because of the fact of the cold weather and, of course, the fact that Mother Nature decided to spoil the party once again. But we did have a chance to talk to Graham Rahal and Kyle Larson, who were nice enough to visit the media center after practice and be able to answer some of the questions for us. Let's hear what they have to say about today's conditions. So obviously coming off of last year with what happened, having to deal with the emotions of that brief period of knowing that you wouldn't be in the race, do you find yourself now having a newfound appreciation for just being able to qualify for the race, let alone be a contender for the win coming into this year?
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt about it. I mean, Kenny, Dad, and I had this talk at dinner last night. I mean, you know, and I said it last year. I mean, Indy is not a place that is given; it's earned. And you go through that roller coaster of emotions, and you know, the ups, the downs, the highs, the lows. That's racing in general, but Indy magnifies all of that. But it is a place that will test every bit of you. And, you know, as tough as it was, you know, I fully believe that you should have to qualify for the Indy 500. That should be a standard thing. And this year we're going to have to go out there and try again. And, you know, after last year, I told a few people, but the first voicemail, when I got back to my phone, literally the first phone call and voicemail I had was from Alex Jr. And it meant the world to me. In fact, if I pull up my phone right now, it's one of the few voicemails that I've not deleted, you know, for the last year, because he's a guy who's experienced it. He's been at the highs, he's been at the lows, and that's what makes you in the end. And so for me, this is a year that I need to, you know, we as a team need to respond as well as possible, and have a good month of May, and I fully expect that we will.
Let's take two off Zoom. Nate Ryan, NBC Sports. Hi Nate, go ahead.
Hey Dave, thanks. Grant, following up on what you said about Takuma, on the Peacock interview, you were saying that Takuma has the most advanced car, you're in the middle, and Christian and Pietro are one step behind. Can you kind of elaborate on that, like what that means that he's the most advanced car, and is that partially because even though he's the one-off, he's the most successful guy at the Speedway? Is that the thinking there?
No, it's just with our development, what we have. And Nate, what that comes down to is IndyCar right now has a serious issue with parts and part shortages. And so my car today is not my Indy 500 car, it's my Long Beach car. It was my hybrid test car last week. It was, whatever. Whereas Takuma's car has been at the shop for this sustained period of time, which allows it to get a little further ahead. We have a major part shortage with, the bell housings, gearboxes, a lot of the new hybrid componentry that's not being used with a hybrid currently. And so we simply have not had a lot of spares to be able to take to prep Indy 500 stuff. I mean, that's what it comes down to. And so a lot of that, his stuff, and he also has the Indy race motor. All of the part-time drivers today would have their Indy month of May motors in, which I'm sure for both manufacturers is a step ahead. It's an evolution, and so we don't have that. So that's really what it comes down to. It's not an experience thing or anything else. It was literally parts, just where we could get them and how it worked. And that's why Friday, I don't know the final decision, but if it rains out tomorrow, I don't know if they'll run or not. But if you run Friday, it's going to make lives very, very hard for the teams, because my car, Christian's, Pietro's, everybody's car's got to be turned around to race next week, and you have a very short period of time before those trucks need to leave. So it just comes down to parts at this time.
So obviously, with the schedule that you have, any track time you need is good for you, obviously. With the obvious, no pun intended, damper on the weather, losing you possibly 2.5 days of track time, how much does that change for you with trying to prepare for this race, knowing that you need as much as you can get, and obviously with the weather, that takes away a big part of the opening session to help you get ready for May?
Yeah, I don't know. I think there's a couple ways you could probably look at it. I think laps would be great. I would obviously like more laps, but I think in conditions like this, I don't know how well of a representation it would be for the month of May, especially race day. So, maybe it's best that I don't get that many laps this week, because then I would have a false sense of what's real and what's coming in a month. So it doesn't, I won't be sad if we don't get laps tomorrow, just because I know that the conditions aren't hopefully going to be anything like what it will be in May. So yeah, I think there would be a lot more to learn once we really get into the 2 weeks that we're on track here.
When Jimmy Johnson was in our series, he was pretty honest about the differences, going from the NASCAR car to, the Cup car to the Indy car. Did you talk with Jimmy at all before you came out here and did this, or?
Just briefly, I think a few months ago, he just said I was gonna have a blast, honestly, really. I've tried not to ask too many questions to people. I feel like the way I've learned in the past is I just need to learn on my own a little bit. And don't get me wrong, I'm leaning on Tony Kanaan a lot, and was in there while I was during the couple-hour break, talking to my teammates and stuff. But I think to a point, I just need to almost just feel things out on my own sometimes, and things are Jimmy hasn't ran a next-gen car that much, and so I don't know how well he could compare to what I currently feel in the stock car, and how that would relate to this. So any information is good. I just don't want to overload myself with too much information from too many different people, and just confuse myself. I think there's just although we're on track a lot, it's a small window of time to learn, and I think if I overwhelm myself with too much info, I can get lost.
And that's going to wrap it up here from the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Like I said earlier, the rain is more likely going to be like this tomorrow. I'm not expecting very high hopes. Like I said earlier, we're going to go over the top 30, the full 34 tomorrow, so that we actually have something to talk about. I'm going to try and see if I can get some interviews worked out as well, but of course, with the weather, there's a good chance that some of them might just say, to heck with it, and leave. It's supposed to rain from like 3 a.m. and just get worse as the day goes on, but you know, it said the same thing about today and it held off, so hopefully something wind happens and it pushes it north or south and we're able to actually come out here and finish the test. But of course, thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you guys so much for your support. If you like what we're doing here, of course, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell. Be sure to comment on the video and share it so that way everybody you know can get in love with this, because of course the hype is now building up. The feeling of the month of May is about to be around the corner, and with the Indy GP, the Indianapolis 500, and the Route 66 Nationals, we got a lot to talk about coming into the month of May. But of course, not only do we have this, but this weekend we're going to be covering the Vegas 4-Wide Nationals for the NHRA. They're in the 4-Wide season right now. They're going to have the Vegas 4-Wide this week, and I believe the week after or the week following that, they're going to have the Charlotte 4-Wide. So that should be a very fun thing to cover. So again, if you like what we do, like, share, subscribe, do all that fun stuff. Follow me on all social media pages down below. Mighty Mac 03 on Twitter, Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, all that fun stuff. So again, on behalf of Mighty Mac on YouTube, thank you guys so much for watching. And until tomorrow, this has been Mighty Mac, and I will see you next time.